Samantha Keithley seemed to be living the kind of life people envy. A beautiful home in a quiet Florida neighborhood. 4 children who were her entire world. A real estate career rising faster than even she expected. Friends who called her Wonder Woman because she carried everyone's burdens without hesitation. And at her side was her husband, Kirk Keithley, a Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputy, a man the community trusted to protect them. But on the night of September 23, 2018, that perfect picture shattered. Behind closed doors, the life Samantha had built with her own hands unraveled in a way no one saw coming. What unfolded wasn't just a crime. It was a tragedy born from silence, hidden pain, and a woman who spent her whole life protecting others, but never realized she needed protection from the man standing right beside her. Welcome to True Crime Wound, where we tell real stories with depth, respect, and the truth that so many victims never lived long enough to share. If you care about cases like Samantha's and want to help us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard, please subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. Your support helps this channel grow and allows us to keep digging into heartbreaking cases just like this. Samantha Marie Griggs was born on December 29, 1984, in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Growing up, she was electric, the kind of person who walked into a room and changed its energy. Her laugh was infectious. Her loyalty was unshakable. She had that rare quality where people just felt safe around her, like everything would somehow work out if Samantha was there. But when she was just 16 years old, everything changed. Her mother passed away from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and in an instant, Samantha went from being a carefree teenager to the emotional anchor of her family. Her younger brother, Taylor Sling, watched as his sister transformed before his eyes. She didn't just grieve, she became the protector, the caretaker, the one who made sure everyone else was okay, even when she was breaking inside. Growing up together, we were best friends. We lost our mother at a young age, and it brought me and her closer. She was always there for me, and she kind of became a mother figure to me, Taylor would later recall. That loss carved something into Samantha's character that would define the rest of her life. She became fiercely protective of the people she loved. She had this almost superhuman ability to sense when someone was hurting, to know exactly what to say, to be exactly what they needed. The family eventually settled in Brandon, Florida, where Samantha went to Bloomingdale High School. That's where she met Kristen Kellen, who quickly became more like a sister than a friend. They grew up side by side, sharing all the highs and lows of teenage life, and graduated together in 2003. Anyone who knew Samantha back then remembers the same thing. Her energy pulled people in, and her friendship stayed with you. Samantha didn't just have friends, she had people she would go to war for. She enjoyed life, Kellen would later say. She was stunningly beautiful, she was fun, and we had some crazy, amazing, fun times together. If you were in Samantha's circle, you were protected, you were safe, you mattered. But here's the thing about people who spend their lives taking care of everyone else. Sometimes they forget to protect themselves. Samantha poured that protective nature straight into her work. After landing a job at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Tampa, she didn't just show up, she thrived. What started as an entry-level position quickly became a decade-long climb, fueled by her determination and the way she connected so easily with people. Everyone around her could see it. Samantha wasn't just good at her job, she was built for it. Her co-workers weren't just people she worked with. They became her second family. And Samantha was the kind of person who held that family together. She was the one who remembered your child's birthday, who stepped in to cover your shift when life blindsided you, who could turn a brutal double shift into something everyone could get through. By 2018, her hard work paid off, and she was promoted to assistant manager. Hard Rock president Joe Lupo later reflected on her impact, saying, "Sam was part of our Hard Rock family for over 10 years. She was truly loved by everyone who knew her." But Samantha wasn't satisfied with just one success. While working full-time, she enrolled in nursing school. Then came real estate. Despite having no formal training in property, she had recently joined Keller Williams Realty in Lakeland, and almost immediately she was phenomenal at it. Clients loved her because she wasn't just selling houses, she was finding people homes. Her colleagues started calling her Wonder Woman. It wasn't hyperbole. "I don't know how she did it," one coworker remembered. "Most of us struggle with one full-time job. Sam had 3, and she still showed up smiling." Samantha married Kirk Keithley in 2012, and together they built a blended family of 4 kids. Mark, 14, was Samantha's son from a previous relationship. Peyton, 7, was Kirk's son from his earlier marriage, and together they welcomed 2 little girls, Olivia, who was 4, and Alan, the baby of the family at just 2 years old. It was a busy, blended household, but for Samantha, those kids were her whole world. In February 2018, they bought what they hoped would be their dream home on Terrazzo Way in the Bexley community of Land O'Lakes. The neighborhood was quiet, safe, and full of young families, close to good schools and everything they needed. It felt like a clean slate, a chance for both of them to start over and build the happy life they'd been reaching for. But behind closed doors, something else was unfolding. Kirk had been with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office since 2009, after spending 6 years with the St. Petersburg Police Department. He had the uniform, the authority, and the respect that comes with almost 20 years in law enforcement. On paper, his career looked steady, nothing flashy but stable. But the people who actually knew him saw a different side. Something you couldn't always explain, but you felt it the longer you were around him. He was cold, distant, tightly controlled in a way that made you wonder what was going on beneath the surface. Samantha's family never really warmed up to Kirk. And truthfully, he never gave them the chance. Relatives said he carried himself like he was above everyone else, barely engaging in conversation at family gatherings. Her brother, Taylor Sling, remembered dinners where Kirk sat stiff and quiet, giving off the unmistakable impression that he had no interest in getting to know anyone. It was like there was a wall around him, and he made it clear no one was allowed past it. His professional record painted a similar picture. His evaluations often used phrases like austere demeanor, and over the years he'd picked up a few disciplinary issues. In 2016, he was reprimanded for misusing communication equipment. In 2011, he received a counseling letter after an avoidable traffic crash. And even earlier, in a 2008 review, his supervisors had already flagged his cold demeanor and suggested he get interpersonal skills training. Despite all the red flags, there were never any documented domestic violence calls to their home. And unfortunately, that's not unusual in cases involving law enforcement families. The abuser often knows exactly how to avoid leaving a paper trail, how to keep things quiet, contained, and hidden behind the walls of their own house. But the people living around them saw glimpses of the truth. Mike Griffith, who lived across the street for 5 years, prided himself on knowing everyone in the neighborhood. He called himself the mayor of the neighborhood because he made it a point to check in on people, say hello, and build a sense of community. But there was one person he could never figure out: Kirk Keithley. According to Mike, Samantha was warm and friendly, but only when Kirk wasn't around. When he was there, she'd just give a quick wave or say hello and move on, he recalled. It was subtle, but to Mike it felt like she was shrinking herself whenever her husband stepped outside. This detail is particularly chilling in retrospect. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, that wall started going up around Samantha too. It suggests that Samantha may have learned to adjust her behavior based on Kirk's presence, a common pattern in controlling relationships. Friends and family started noticing subtle changes. Samantha wasn't showing up to things like she used to. Phone calls got shorter. That light in her eyes dimmed just a little. Looking back, the signs were there, Taylor would later say, but we didn't know what we were looking at. And Sam, she was so good at seeming okay. Kirk understood the system. He knew the laws. He knew precisely how far he could push without raising obvious alarms. Meanwhile, Samantha's real estate career was flourishing. She was growing more independent, more successful, more confident. For her, this wasn't just about earning money, it was about proving to herself what she was capable of. But for Kirk, her success may have felt very different. To him, it could have seemed like a challenge, a loss of control, something he needed to contain. Law enforcement is a high-pressure world. Officers face constant stress and trauma, carry weapons, and are trained to control every situation. Yet, all too often, when they struggle, they don't reach out for help. Research shows that domestic violence occurs at significantly higher rates in law enforcement families, sometimes 2 to 4 times higher than in the general population. By 2018, Kirk was pulling away emotionally. The distance between him and Samantha was growing. Friends noticed she seemed stressed, overwhelmed, stretched thin, juggling responsibilities that would challenge anyone. But what few could see was that Samantha wasn't just balancing a demanding career and motherhood. She was navigating something far darker, a marriage where the balance of power had tipped dangerously. In a culture where admitting vulnerability can threaten careers, reputations, and identities, officers often stay silent. They internalize, they spiral, and tragically, sometimes they take others down with them. September 23, 2018 started like any other day. By the end of it, 4 children would lose their mother. The evening began with Samantha feeling sick, exhausted, and just wanting to rest. But Kirk had other plans. For 6 hours, 6 agonizing hours, he harassed her. Samantha had asked Kirk repeatedly to leave her alone because she was unwell. This simple request for space should have been respected. Instead, Kirk became increasingly agitated and aggressive. By late evening, Samantha had reached her breaking point. She couldn't stay in that house. She packed a bag, got in her car, and drove to a hotel. Just to get away, just to breathe. At the hotel, just before midnight, Samantha reached out to her best friend, Kristen Kellen. Her messages were urgent, raw, and filled with fear. Kirk has lost his mind, Kristen. He's been harassing me for the past 6 hours, and I've asked him over and over to leave me alone because I'm sick. In a moment, heavy with meaning, she added, I just chucked my ring outside, referring to her wedding ring. It was a small, symbolic act, but one that spoke volumes. Her marriage had broken down completely. A gesture meant to reclaim a sense of control, but one that may have pushed Kirk further toward anger. Kristen Kellen wouldn't see Samantha's desperate messages until around 2 a.m., far too late to intervene. I didn't open it until about 2 a.m., Kellen later explained. I texted her back the next morning around 7. By then, it was already too late. Despite everything, Samantha made the fateful choice to return home. Maybe she was thinking of the kids. Maybe she hoped the morning would bring calm. Like many victims of domestic abuse, she may have believed that if she just got through one more night, she could figure out a plan for safety tomorrow. Returning home suggests she may not have fully understood the danger she faced, a heartbreaking reality in many abusive relationships. Psychological manipulation, fear, and hope can make it nearly impossible to gauge the true risk. What we do know is this: Kirk was waiting. And when Samantha stepped back through that door in the early hours, she was walking straight into a nightmare. Around 1 a.m. on September 24, 2018, Kirk shot Samantha whilst she sat on the downstairs couch. Maybe she was trying to talk to Kirk. Maybe she was just trying to make it through until the kids woke up. Maybe she was planning her next move. We don't know what her last thoughts were, whether she saw it coming or whether it happened so fast she didn't have time to be afraid. Kirk took his service weapon, and he shot his wife. Samantha Keithley died on her living room couch in the early morning hours of September 24th, 2018. She was 33 years old. After shooting Samantha, Kirk went upstairs and turned the gun on himself. The children were in the house. 14-year-old Mark Price showed extraordinary courage in the face of unthinkable horror. Mark woke up that morning to a silence that felt wrong. The house was too quiet. Something was off. When he heard the gunshot, he went downstairs and discovered his mother's body. This child, this brave, remarkable child, had to process a horror no one should ever witness. He had to understand, in an instant, that his mother was gone, that his stepfather had killed her, that he needed to get help. He didn't freeze or panic. The garage door was down. Mark couldn't open it, so he crawled under the garage door to escape. He ran to the neighbors. He then made the crucial 911 call. "My mom's been shot. My mom's been shot." "Oh my God, my stepdad just shot my mom in the head," he said through sobs. Despite his emotional state, Mark was able to provide critical information. "My stepdad and mom had been arguing for a night, and she went to a hotel and she came back, and I heard them arguing, and I heard a gunshot, and I walked outside and she was bloody and I saw her dead." The way Mark described finding his mother, "She was bloody and I saw her dead," is gut-wrenching. No child should ever witness a parent like that. When the dispatcher asked him to describe his stepfather, Mark repeated through tears, "He just shot my mom in the head. My stepdad shot my mom in the head." The repetition reflects a mind struggling to comprehend the unimaginable. Then the line went dead. For several tense minutes, dispatchers had no way of knowing if Mark, or his siblings, was safe. Finally, Mark called back. By then, a friend's father had taken over the line, assuring authorities, "He has got 2 young stepsisters right in front of the house." The other children were safe. When Pasco County deputies arrived, they found exactly what Mark had described. Samantha's body was on the couch. Kirk upstairs. Both dead. 4 children now orphaned in the span of a single morning. Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nocco later said, "It's devastating what happened here today. The moment someone entrusted with protecting others turns that power into harm, they forfeit the right to call themselves a law enforcement officer, no matter the agency." The toxicology reports confirmed Kirk had been heavily intoxicated. Blood alcohol content of 0.156, oxycodone in his system. He made the decision to kill his wife while under the influence, armed, and in a position of authority he'd abused in the worst possible way. Samantha's uncle, Ted Fraley, would later reflect, "That alcohol and those pills don't explain anything. It's all on Kirk. It doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't justify anything." The tragedy sent shockwaves through multiple communities. The real estate community quickly rallied around Samantha's children. Within 24 hours, a GoFundMe campaign was launched, ultimately raising nearly $80,000 to support them. The children were placed in the care of Samantha's father. On October 2nd, 2018, hundreds gathered at Bells Shoals Baptist Church in Brandon to honor Samantha. During the service, her Uncle Ted delivered words that captured the essence of her life, emphasizing the love, strength, and protection she gave to everyone around her. But even as the community mourned, uncomfortable questions were being asked. How did this happen? Could this have been prevented? And most troublingly, was this an isolated incident, or was there something systemic going on? The Samantha Keithley case had already highlighted serious gaps in law enforcement's mental health support. But just 3 months later, tragedy struck again with Deputy Terry Strawn. Unlike Kirk, Strawn was a highly respected 26-year veteran with a spotless record. Colleagues described him as kind, professional, and engaged. No disciplinary issues, no warning signs. No one suspected he was capable of violence. Yet on December 19, 2018, Strawn killed his wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter before taking his own life, announcing each step over the police radio. The contrast between the two deputies was chilling. Kirk had been cold, austere, and problematic. Terry had been warm, reliable, and respected. One acted in a drunken rage, the other with deliberate, horrifying precision. And yet both ended the same way, leaving families shattered and exposing how little warning those closest to them could see. Strawn's case was made even more tragic by the fact that his granddaughter was a student at the very school he was tasked to protect, turning a place of learning into a scene of unspeakable loss. 2 murder-suicides by deputies within months. This wasn't just tragic, it was a crisis. Together, the 2 cases underscored the dangers of domestic violence within law enforcement families and the failure of available mental health resources. Sheriff Chronister knew something had to change. These weren't just isolated incidents, they were symptoms of a larger problem. The 2 tragedies forced the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office to confront uncomfortable truths and implement comprehensive reforms. Mandatory suicide prevention training was rolled out for every deputy, no exceptions. Every officer is now trained to recognize warning signs in themselves and their colleagues, ensuring that struggles aren't ignored. In addition, the department hired a full-time psychologist, a dedicated mental health professional whose sole responsibility is to support the men and women of the sheriff's office. This wasn't just about crisis response. It was about creating a culture where seeking help is seen as a strength, not a weakness. A behavioral resources unit was established to provide ongoing emotional support. The focus wasn't just on responding to crises, it was about proactive mental health care. Regular check-ins, accessible resources, and consistent guidance became the new standard, shifting the culture away from the old tough it out mindset toward one where it's understood that it's okay to not be okay. Emotional support dogs and chaplain programs were introduced, giving officers multiple avenues for comfort and guidance. The department also launched initiatives specifically aimed at breaking the stigma around asking for help. Seeking support wasn't framed as a weakness, it was framed as strength. Mental health issues don't discriminate, Sheriff Chad Chronister said. It's not a sign of weakness to say, "Hey, I'm having a difficult time." Asking for help is a sign of courage. These reforms couldn't bring Samantha back. They couldn't undo the trauma her 4 children endured, nor erase the grief her family and friends carry every single day. But they could save the next person. They could prevent the next tragedy. They could give someone the support they need before it's too late. Sometimes meaningful change only comes after heartbreak. The real question is whether we're willing to learn from it. Samantha Keithley lived for 33 years, 7 months, and 23 days. Her life was so much more than how it ended. She was a daughter who stepped up when her mother passed, a sister who protected her brother, a mother who would have done anything for her children, a friend who made everyone feel safe, a co-worker who turned colleagues into family, a woman who saw someone trapped in an abusive relationship and said, "You can stay with me." Her death sparked changes that may prevent other families from facing similar tragedies. The 4 children she loved so deeply carry her legacy forward. Mark, her eldest, showed extraordinary courage on the worst morning of his life. By calling 911, he demonstrated the same protective instinct that had defined Samantha's life. He acted quickly to protect his siblings, stepping up in the way his mother always had. Though the trauma of that day will always be part of their story, it does not define Samantha's life, or theirs. Her light, her love, and her strength live on through them. In death, as in life. Samantha Keithley continues to protect others. The reforms sparked by her case have extended far beyond Hillsborough County. Police departments across the country took notice, asking tough questions about how they handle mental health, support officers, and address domestic violence within their ranks. Her death forced law enforcement agencies to confront uncomfortable truths about the prevalence of domestic violence among officers, the stigma surrounding mental health, and the unique dangers that arise when those entrusted to protect and serve become the very threat they were sworn to stop. Samantha's death mattered, not because of how she died, but because of how people responded to her loss. When we remember Samantha, it shouldn't be for the tragedy that ended her life, but for the light she carried every single day. We honor her not for the few horrifying minutes that took her from this world, but for the 18 million minutes she lived, minutes filled with love, courage, and dedication. For the lives she touched, the people she protected, and the care she gave freely and fiercely to everyone lucky enough to know her. She deserved so much more than the way her story ended. Yet her life, full of courage, love, and unwavering strength, will continue to inspire and be remembered long after her loss.